ever.
Ever. Always some country was battling it out with another next to them or something over something.
True that.
Always, yeah.
And if countries lost money for that, trust me, it would stop. If everybody lost money when there was a war, it would stop. But there's always countries that make money.
So they're counting on it, or
Yeah.
they're banking on it, or they are gaining something.
If you haven't got somebody to use your weapons, then you're going broke if you make them. Isn't that true?
That's right. That's right. And drugs too.
Drugs.
If you don't have people who are sick, or you're not making people sick, you're trying to feed your drugs you're making. What are you doing with those? Like
exactly.
It's interesting. Indeed, there is much evidence that Dr. J. Allen Henke, who had the Project Blue Book for the Air Force, said it was an embarrassment of riches. We have so much. The only question is, why does the world have this evidence, and who gains from hiding it? Because we can all be assured those hiding it are not motivated by protection or development of humanity. There have always been clues hinted at by top-level officials around the world. To note, the Japanese have founded a landing zone of aliens landing port. Why would anyone put money into something if they genuinely thought it was frivolous? What is that word you wrote?
Frivolous is where you're putting money into something that you know has absolutely
you don't
no
believe
value.
On it.
Yeah, it's got no value.
Right.
I'm just going to throw money at it because it's got no value. Why would I do that if I was a government?
You wouldn't.
No.
Especially if you're a government.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know there was something there. Why would exactly? The Chinese have built the biggest communication satellite with the latest tech available for the one and the only reason for catching extraterrestrial communications. And that is quite interesting with what happened last week. Americans were shooting down something that looks like UFOs.
Whatever, yeah.
That is quite interesting.
At this stage, they're pretending that they might have that power.
I was just, as soon as it hit the news, and when the Biden announced that, it's like, whoa, you want to have some power, buddy? That's how you kind of... I feel like he'll use that as a scare tactic for whatever he's planning. Yes, exactly.
Because this would have been happening all along during the war, during Vietnam, all of those times where they had definite interactions and soldiers have stepped up and said, we saw this, Air Force personnel and pilots, why didn't they attack them then? They've sent F-16s out after them. Why didn't they attack them then? Let's get real. Yeah.
Exactly. Why do that if they genuinely believe that aliens were so far away that they could not send or receive communications? Seriously though, why do that if anyone truly believes that aliens race were impossible and far away? Let's state for the record, there is no scientist on Earth and therefore no government who does not believe aliens exist. I do not know anyone. I know everybody. Lots of people, even general public, believes in aliens, and they know, and they're putting pictures, and they're seeing things. Moreover, this belief isn't just based on probability of existence, as mentioned by our own astronomers. Remember those? We trust them for a lot of things. So if they see something, don't dismiss it. There are so many planets capable of sustaining life in the universe as there are grains of sand in our beaches.
Statement made by scientists. These statements are not 2023. They're not 2023 new knowledge. They've been engaged in for nearly 100 years, but we seem to be no closer to understanding the capabilities, potential different life forms, or even if aliens came to have populated the Earth with us. We don't know any of this. There is no true evidence that we are naturally developed, and the differences of races on the Earth presents a constant and changing dilemma for our own genetic scientists. They do okay until they find Rh blood groups or Rh negative blood groups, or discover something that should not exist in the timeline ascribed to it. And really, there is so much that doesn't fit in that one would logically want to, not just need to, rewrite the probabilities, not just of our own timelines, but of how we determine past events, otherwise known as history, commonly written by religious archaeologists with a remit to forward their beliefs in favour of power and financial gain from the Roman Catholics and the French monks and Franciscans who were excavating Israel so long ago that they determined what we are to believe about what they found, and there's something not right about that. And then there's those who simply want to feather their own personal nest at the expense of their constituents. So we've got those two things. We can talk power and money, but we've also got people that are dogmatic. This is my belief, therefore everything must fit into it. Right?
Yeah, but people have a hard time it would be nice to analyze any information you get and get to kind of see or be open to different ideas and stuff like that. But some people have made up their mind that that's what they want to believe to the end.
There's Zachariah Sitchin. He wrote a book, The 12th Planet. And the interesting thing about that is he wrote that book and put it out into the public because he was an astronomer, not an astrologer, an astronomer. And he said that mathematically, and that's how they discover planets before we could see them, Pluto and all of them were discovered via mathematics. It has to be there because of the orbit of the rest of us, right? And he said because of the orbit of the rest of us, there has to be another planet with a 360-year cycle. That is a 360-year orbit. And he said, and it would wing out so far, it may even be going the opposite way. And he got poo-pooed, literally poo-pooed by all of his profession. He got sidelined, and so he wrote a few more books. And then it turns out, just as after we go through, I could have the year wrong, but you can look it up. It's out there. It was big news at the time. Oh, look, this planet has come into our orbit, and then everybody's freaking out it might hit something.
No, it's all the Comet thing. I remember that.
And it came in, and then it turned around and went back out, and there's your 360-year cycle, which is fascinating.
Of course, but they dismissed all that information written by the astronomer who seen it ahead of time.
It's exactly right, until it was proven visually. And I'm like, well, hang on a minute, we stated what our solar system looked like and how it was working simply by mass without the visual aids, because we can only see so far without visual aids. And it's only later, years later, that they proved what they were through having the equipment to do so. So I think it's kind of bizarre in its own self. And one of those really weird things. I don't know. It's just a bizarre mentality to me that you wouldn't be going, okay, let's check the maths on that and see, okay, there is something. They're so much more open now to it because they've proven that I think his book came out about 40 years before it was proven. And so when you start looking at that, you go, so there's 40 years of science, please note.
Ahead,
yeah,
exactly.
Refusing to acknowledge science, because it didn't fit into their
agenda or
there's a bit about who gets paid the money, right? Who gets paid the money? Well, you get paid the money by governments if you're in those level, or you get paid by a corporation, or you get paid by somebody. So if you don't toe the line, you might lose your funding. It's pretty much how it works.
It is who supports what and who's paying the bill.
Exactly.
At the end of the day. So conspiracy theories as branding is foolishness as a way to degenerate those who do not conform. But history shows us that objectively thinking changes the world. There was a time when those who said the Nazis were killing Jews and masses were killed, and to maintain the image of ethnic cleansing is in favor of white supremacy, ridiculed and called conspiracy theorists by those entertaining a relationship with the power. Let us not think for 1 minute that anything has changed, unfortunately. On the surface, there is an appearance of change, but the governments of the world are constantly proving how far they will go to authenticity and nullify their own population, more and more being actors in their own stage and shows. With the benefit of hindsight, we see all the governments hyper around exposed in the areas of the UFOs, and then discover that in the main they are not only not revealing all the activity, hiding most of what they promises to reveal. In 2023, we already know, and 2021, revelations of the documents didn't contain evidence suggested, mostly only the last conclusive. And I'll get that next page. Or
And-
you
but it's right. So all of the witnesses that were still alive to some of these so-called exposés, videos and photos say that we're showing 2 minutes of what was 12 minutes. We're showing one photo of what was 6 photos. And so they're only showing us things that can still leave us contentious and argumentative because it isn't conclusive. And so we are being drip-fed, and I have no doubts about that. And that, again, is not a conspiracy theory because it's been going on all along. There are governments that, like the Mexican government, when their Air Force interacted with what I think, because of the size of them, must not be anything more than probes, if you like, then unmanned probes. When they were confronted with that, they just put it out there, shared the video, shared the sound, didn't touch it, didn't edit it, didn't do anything with it. And then, of course,
of course not.
And even people that go in and they download these and re-upload them, now it's just a mess. YouTube's not even worth looking at because they just abort these things so much that in the end you're not getting the original, and it's so hard to find it because there's literally thousands of people who've chopped it around to make money off them with advertising. Well, that's where the money thing comes in, right? Those involved as eyewitnesses or in the original investigations have stepped forward many times in the last year or so to tell us that there were many more minutes of video or more photos that were conclusive. In England and the UK, the 6 photos they showed us, let us one out, and that was because a man still had it in his file and released it. So that one photo doesn't have enough going for it. And all of them say the other photos were even more clear, and it was very easy to see what was going on with these super clear photos from the 70s. And so the UK puts another 30-year ban on being able to see them, whatever. And that's in the 70s, so it can't be secret anything anymore. So why? There's that question. So in the essence, all of this so-called we're revealing is spin. It's just spin. We can tell the world we are revealing, but in no way are we proving. So I'm confident, this is a statement by the way, I'm confident that 2022 is going to be a seismic year for UFOs, says Nick Pope, who spent the early 1990s investigating UFOs for the British Ministry of Defence. And more statements of affirmation about witnesses that have been slammed no matter what their experience is or is not a part of a generalized refusal. Generalized refusal and closed-mindedness. In Congress, where a bipartisan group of senators have been pushing for years for the government to release more information on UFOs, and from the U.S. Defense Department and intelligence community, Pope said he senses a genuine desire to grip the issue. And I'm doing the inverted commas with my fingers.
You guys should see her.
Yeah, that I think that we'll see, he goes on to say, I think we'll see congressional hearings on UFOs. I also think we'll release more U.S. military photos and videos of UFOs and associated documents. Some of this may come via whistleblowers, but much of it may be released by the government either itself, proactively, or in response to requests under the Freedom of Information Act. And I want to be very clear. The UK released thousands of documents, and they released them for a few months. They released so many documents that finding any truth in them would just be a nightmare anyway. And then they started charging for them, so you had to be quite well off to be able to afford to pay for access to quote-unquote Freedom of Information Act. They found a way around it, and it's that same government who Pope is part of that has hidden all of these photos for the next 30-odd years. So what's going on then? So much for the revelations. It's almost
Why is that?
It's almost like Pope is advertising the whole deal. This is what's going to happen, he says, in 2022. Here we are already at 2023, and there's already contention around what has been revealed.
That is so weird how they make that. Well, if it's free of information under Freedom of Information Act, why isn't it free?
Well, they did have it free for a few months, and then it became public information, and then they started charging for it. See?
You see, it's kind of called money again.
It's all about
Like I'm
money.
moving my hands, it's all about money.
But
Who
you
has the
still
money to
won't
pay for
find
things?
much in it. You literally got every single report that was released. So it could be down
Okay.
to you pay for a document or 10 documents, and then you just see people reported seeing a light over the sky and blah, blah, blah. That's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, trying to give you so much that you'll lose interest and stop trying. But there's more information hidden in there. Because when you ask for freedom of information, you have to be very specific. Very specific.
Yes.
This date, this time, this